All right, so Jeff, how did you find the channel? Was it someone you knew saw me giving a tour of this place?
Yeah, it was my cousin, which I've been watching the channel for a while anyway.
So your cousin messages you and said, you got to help this guy. His yard's jacked up.
Yeah.
And so you've been an expert. You've been chasing this your whole life on golf courses and yards and things like that. And so you're here to kind of help me figure out why our yard's jacked up.
Yeah, and what typically happens is, you know, you explained to me a little bit on the phone the other day is, you know, you hire all your normal companies and their methodology is they're going to mix whatever they mix in the tank. Yeah. You know, and if you go out and if your soil conditions are good for it, awesome. You're like, that's the best lawn company on the face of the earth. Whereas if your soil conditions aren't good for it, then you might wind up with getting some of the results you have. And it's a one size fit all thing. So the way I would explain it is that if everybody walked into a doctor and the doctor prescribed a statin to everybody that walked through the door, well, half of those people it's going to be great for the other half it's not going to be great for. So what makes my approach different and what some of the best golf courses in the world do is we work off soil analysis, and then we basically create a 23andMe for your yard specifically. So the process becomes very, very different. So, you know, my whole philosophy is why guess at what you can measure. So we measure, we figure out where we need to go, what amendments need to go down into the ground. Then once we do that, the yard kind of takes care of itself. Nature's pretty smart. It'll do its thing and it'll become pretty maintenance free. So there's a difference in approach and philosophy on how I do this.
Come show me and talk a little bit about what we got and how Florida's a little bit different. This is St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Largely. Yep. Supposed to be St. Augustine.
Yeah, it's mostly St. Augustine.
So why do we have this grass here? Because it does well with lots of water or not water? Why do we do this stuff here?
They like to say it's drought tolerant, St. Augustine.
Yeah.
And it is to a certain degree. It's very, very hardy grass.
I mean, it's like I'm walking on sponge. It's a sponge.
It's a complete sponge.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's hardy. It grows laterally really, really well. Does relatively well in shade, which they say, but there's other problems which you and I will talk about that'll come into play with that. And it's very aesthetically pleasing. Now, the thing you don't want to do it is play football with your son, because you're going to wind up itching. It's a horrible grass in that regard. It's not like up north. You're from Pennsylvania, so you've walked around barefoot in grass. This stuff's not that fun. You lay in grass,
you don't touch this stuff.
No, it's like a rash waiting to happen.
Yep.
So it seems to be the predominant grass that we have down here. It does relatively well for the conditions we have. They've tried a couple different varieties and everybody thought they had the silver bullet, and it turns out that those have their own little nuances too.
Zoysia.
Yep.
Bahia. Right. You always look at it like Bahia is like the poor people's grass.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to do as much to it.
Right.
But then that's very weed prone.
It is.
And then Zoysia is kind of real nice and soft, but it seems like that's hard to keep going too.
Yeah, that one's really, really prone to a lot more diseases than St. Augustine. So, you know, they tout it as a maintenance-free grass, less maintenance, but now it's getting into a whole different animal, and it's, you know, gets a lot of leaf spot diseases, and it's not a great alternative. So this seems to be the best we have all around for right now.
Yeah, because like I had Bahia at my little house in Claremont, and it's just, I'm joking about poor people grass, but it's just a little easier to maintain. You fertilize a couple times and it kind of dies in the winter and comes back or goes dormant, and where St. Augustine's a lot more work.
Yeah, it is a lot more work.
But it looks great. I mean, this little bit of sections look great, but we're constantly dealing with
thin areas, stuff like that.
This was all plugged here recently. They just cut it for the first time. You know, we've got mushrooms growing and all kinds of stuff.
Which is bound to happen. So overall, looking at what your situation is, you know, and this is coming from years of experience, and I'll tie it in with what you were talking about on your video. So primarily you've got two things going on here that I'll prove through a diagnosis.
Yeah.
So number one, you got shade, which is not something that you don't know yourself. So we've got some issues with daylight growing and everything like that. Now, number two, when you pressure washed your yard, you had all kinds of staining from your trees. So that is tannic acid, and that's an acid that the tree lets off. So it doesn't like things growing underneath it. It's competition for its root zone and everything. So what it does is it tends to turn the soil really acidic. So,
oak leaves, all that, just that Florida funk that I'm always talking about.
Yeah.
It's coming from the trees. You know, the humidity then just gets it on it. Like if you leave an extension cord out, like across driveway for a few weeks, it turns into gunk city.
Yeah, and that's what the tree's letting off. So then what winds up happening, if we look at like, you know, in our world, pH is something that we really, really measure. Chemistry just in general.
Sure.
You know, in our world, 6.5 is where the most nutrients are available. If we go to 4.5, 4.9, like under most oak trees, it's going to be about a 5 typically. Well, that means our calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium are not going to be available. So we have to use those to adjust to get the pH right. Whereas if we were a pH of 7.2, now all our metals like iron, magnesium, you know, zinc, copper, those aren't going to be available. So if it turns out that my hunch is correct and you have an acidic yard, those are really available right now. The other ones aren't. So we create a balance, we get it to 6.5, most nutrients are available, everything starts working perfectly together. And then you have perfect grass.
So, but is that an ongoing thing, I'm assuming?
It can be. Usually the work, you know, depending on where we're starting from, it could be a very large effort up front with commodity items that are very inexpensive. It's just a lot of it has to go down because you have to move. I mean, we're talking pHs in an algorithm. So we have to move a lot of pH points and it takes time. So, you know, I let you know about another private client I worked with. His yard started off at 5.5 and to get him to a 6.5, it took us almost a year and a half. So it, depending on what we're working with, it can be a lot of ongoing right up front, but once you get it to baseline, then it's just normal, typical maintenance, and the yard becomes super easy, hands off.
Now, what about all this stuff, like other plants, like beds and things like that? I mean, what do you do with that kind of stuff? You end up planting things that are hardy that don't have to require a lot of work if you're not into botany here.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. You know, and it looks like whoever planted for you did some xeriscape friendly items. And the tricky part when you get into landscape is each one of these plants has its own individual pH it likes, its own individual soil conditions. So azaleas love to grow under pine trees. They like acidic soil. You know, these over here, your liriopes and your mondo grasses, they tend to like a little more alkaline soil. That's why you're starting to see some of the yellowing in there. So you try and find varieties that'll work best with the pH that you have or your overall soil conditions, or you say, okay, I'm going to attack that so I make the conditions best for those two. So soil, what's growing in it is irrelevant. Once we get soil right, everything works.
So where does the treatment company factor into this? We get rid of them?
Well, we have a couple things we could do for you. I know a couple of treatment companies that I'm pretty friendly with that I can call them up and say, hey, you know, I'm going to give you this guy's yard. You just follow my program and they'll come out and do it for you.
Got it.
Most treatment companies tend to get a little sensitive when you're stepping on their program.
Sure, yeah.
So, you know, we try and find one that's a little more friendly. And like I said, I've got a couple that work up in this area that would probably do something for you.
Got it.
Or, you know, you wind up doing it yourself. I mean, my other private client has an estate manager that does it for him. So that made it pretty easy.
I got Michele, she'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if she's going to like you volunteering
so
for that.
As we kind of walk back, we get all different conditions all over the place, right? There's different conditions over there.
Yep.
In the back, I'll show you. And we just hired a new guy to come and really take care of this place. So I think we found the right guy. We also we've had issues like right here, the issue with sprinkler head failed, grass died, bugs come in, destroy it.
Yeah, and then you also have shade.
Yeah.
Complete shade. So if you look at that drip line from that tree,
yeah,
that can be causing it. And then also true, these trees have roots, and these roots, when they go underneath, will actually, they'll outcompete the grass for nutrients. So in a golf course setting, what we'll typically do is like along a fairway or something like that, if we have a lot of trees, you'll see thinning like that, and they'll go in, they'll root prune. So they'll take a trencher and they'll go down about a foot and then just clip all those feeder roots, so you lose some of that competition. But that's an extreme measure that you say, okay, let's get all conditions right, you know. See what happens, and then... Exactly. Yeah, and even things like, you know, weeds, like the gentleman that's going to take care of the property is going to do all of this. Our current company didn't honor their agreement of taking care of, you know, I wanted it to be like a golf course. I don't want to be out weeding this crap. No, and I was paying top dollar to keep that under control. Right. Same thing here. We had a failed sprinkler head somewhere around here, and no one's monitoring that. No. Yeah. And it's, you know, unless it's a labor of love for you or a passion. Yeah, I hate it. Yeah. Well, there you go. I hate everything about it. Answer. But you want it to look good. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's the thing,
all of this 2 months ago was beautiful, and then I guess sprinkler heads started failing, and we've gotten them all fixed.
Yeah, and then we went through in September, National Weather Service out of Gainesville, which from a weather standpoint is pretty much here. It's the driest September in record in probably 90 years. So when you get high temperatures, low humidity, which we had in September, it just pulls the moisture right out of the grass. I mean, and that's what happened. So it was probably a perfect storm to not have your sprinklers working right and cause this kind of scenario. But overall, I mean, looking at it, it's not bad.
So one of the nice things about St. Augustine is it can fill and come back.
Yeah, it grows laterally as well as vertically.
Yeah.
So.
And you don't seed this stuff generally, right?
You can't.
And what about aeration? Everybody was talking about aerating.
Well, so here's kind of the theory on aeration. As roots die, it turns into thatch. What aeration does is removes thatch, allows air, water, nutrients to penetrate, allows for good gas exchange. Now, my main focus is balance the chemistry, feed the soil. In this system, if it's working properly, biology should be doing that for you.
Gotcha.
So you've got microbes down there that are eating that thatch, turning it into nice organic matter in the soil, and you got a reservoir for nutrients.
So you shouldn't need any supplemental aeration then.
Yeah, if your yard is in perfect balance and everything's functioning properly, the chemistry's good, biology's good, physics are good, that should happen on its own.
Yeah.
Now, depending on the yard, you know, I'm a fan of verticutting. That's one option to get some stuff out, and depending on the yard, you may have to do, you know, some verticuts or aerations just to kind of get to where those.
What's a verticut?
Verticut would be, it's almost like a saw blade vertically, and what you're doing is going along this way, and it's cutting your stolons and your runners, and it's removing thatch as it's going that way, as opposed to going down and pulling holes out. So you affect more surface area. So even if you were to aerate this whole yard, at best case scenario, you're going to affect 2% of the area. Where verticutting, we can almost affect 10 to 12%, which can make a big difference.
So there's a special machine that does that?
Yeah. Not a lot of people do verticutting on St. Augustine.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
So what do we do about perimeters? You just kind of let the St. Augustine tail off?
Yeah.
Because we're obviously not trying to maintain this entire property. It's too much.
Yeah.
And the trees are going to kill a lot of it anyway because it's a lot thicker there. So do you just let it kind of tail off and just weed treat, I guess?
Yeah, as you want. You know, or if you want to create a more natural buffer, you know, our good old standby Roundup. You know, just kind of define an edge and just kind of keep that so no weeds work their way back into this way. But
well, the oaks take care of a lot of that.
Yeah,
oak leaves, and I guess it makes it more acidic and kills everything underneath it.
So if you look further back, we get into the oak trees.
Yeah, there's hardly anything there.
There's anything there. I mean, that's if you want a chemical edge and you want to really worry about it.
So this area over here. By the way, my garage is going to go back here.
Okay. Is this where the plans for the new one are?
Yeah. So somewhere in this, it'll be big. It'll be bigger than the house, I think. So. Yeah. But back here, as we get more tree cover, I'm assuming this is more acidic. We just took out some crepe myrtles.
Okay.
All these, like 3 times a year, they dump piles of big, heavy leaves everywhere. Yeah. So we just took all of that out, and that's why you see all the.
Well, also, if you feel here too, Matt, if it's a little harder, you could have some root competition going right here as well, because crepe myrtles are really fibrous roots. There you go. So, you know, that could be part of it too.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
You have the trees dominating the grass for nutrients, so then there's no
chance
way for it to grow.
No chance, yeah.
And then over here has always been problematic because of the probably really acidic back here, I would guess.
Yeah, it's a fair guess. And then also too, you have shade that you're dealing with here.
Yeah.
But see, there's your azaleas right there.
Yeah.
So that gives you a good indication. They're relatively happy, and I'm sure in March, April, they're really happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you just, you know, understand that, well, you know, you get this as good as you can as far as chemistry, and you're always going to fight little battles because of shade.
You know, we've seen this take off at times for whatever reason this year. I don't know if they're cutting it too short, or maybe it's just, you know, we didn't get the leaves out of there fast enough or something. I mean, I don't know. But we had a playhouse and everything here we just chopped out, so we probably want to irrigate and do grass here at some point.
Yeah.
Because all this is a pee box for the cats. You know, no kids don't do squat over there.
Right.
We had a playhouse filled with rats and roaches, and so it's the middle of the woods. So we just took that out yesterday.
Yeah, that seems like it could be a good plan. I mean, there's a lot you can do under here, and I think if we, get the conditions to where they're correct, it'll be a lot less volatile.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what you want is consistent grass that's less volatile.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most.
Yeah,
important
Michele was
thing.
battling it all the time, calling, the company every other day, just calling. And just said, "What are you doing? Like, can you help us out here?" And then, they're doing such a huge scale, like you said, it's just not really possible for them.
Yeah, their model's not relevant for that. And then the other thing too is, every time they come out to see you guys, that you're not paying for a service. Now they're, callbacks are a big thing in their industry.
Yeah.
So they want to try and avoid them as much as possible because they've got that tech and they got the mileage and the gas involved. So they want to avoid it as much as possible too. You kind of run into a loop with it,
Right.
And then ultimately it just depends. Some people want to just keep, I'll switch from company to company and company and it's not that big a deal, where it starts to become like where I contacted you is it becomes a sore spot and you're like, damn it, I want this yard right.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with it.
Right.
But I've wanted this forever where I could just hire somebody to tell me what to do and I'll get it done.
Right.
I might not do it myself, but I'll get it done. In the old days, I would have done it myself.
Right.
And again, unless it's your passion, then it's kind of hard to.
Yeah.
It's hard to chase. There's lots of YouTube guys, the lawn care YouTube guys that they're obsessed with their yard. Well, I'm not.
Right.
This is one of those things that I just don't have any expertise. I don't cut my own yard anymore. That's been a goal of mine since the beginning to not have to do it.
Well, it's a big yard to cut.
Yeah. So what do you do? So tell us about what you're thinking here. What's going through your head? Talk to me. I'm always about numbers. Talk to me about costs. What do these things cost to do?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
So typically, on an annual basis, if I were to do, say 3 major areas, do soil samples for those areas, and in the car I'll show you, I have a report that I write up with every one of my samples. Now this is an extreme basis, private client type deal.
Sure.
I write the report, do site visits, come in, then what I'll do is I'll also do an annual maintenance plan for somebody to follow, whether it's your applicator or somebody else, fertility needs for the property for the year, insecticide, fungicides, all those things, so that we make sure we're covering all the diseases that could happen. The insects could happen before they happen, so we're on a preventative basis. And I charge $2,000 a year for that. And
that's it?
Yeah.
I was worried. I thought you were going to say 20.
No. I'm not doing any work other than pulling dirt and writing
Right.
papers.
So you're a consultant,
yes,
right? You're coming in out here to consult.
Yeah.
And then because you live an hour and a half, or hour and 45 from here, so it's kind of hard. You wouldn't be able to come here. You're not coming to cut my grass.
Right.
You're coming to consult and make sure that we're in the right range. So what do you do now? So I'm in. What do I do?
What do we do is we go to my car, we grab a soil probe.
Let's do it.
All right. It seems like a really scientific device, but it's not.
So do you send this off?
Yeah, so I send it off to a laboratory called Logan Labs. Fantastic laboratory, really, really consistent results. And that allows me to make sure that I have a constant to work from. And then what we do is, usually it takes 10 to 12 days to get the results back. And then from there, I write up the report. I kind of give you a call and tell you, here, you're gonna hold some Ziploc bags for me.
Got it.
Put you to work. We discuss the plans. I come out, I go over the report with you and Michele. We sit down, we talk about it. We agree on a plan going forward as far as maintenance. And then we rip, get going. And then I maintain, we do reports quarterly. So this way we're constantly monitoring what's going on.
Got it.
So that's kind of the process there. So, you define how many you want to do. Like, we could do this as one main area here into the backyard, and then we could maybe look at, over by the trees, by the garage, by the wash bay.
Yeah.
And then, if you want to do this kind of general section, so this way we do 3. And then,
So when you do 3, then you take a consensus, or do you treat each area separately? How do we?
I can do a consensus if they're close.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
But
if you find it's completely different,
yeah, then we're going to have to individualize it.
Because like, what do we do if I see that little patch right over there in between there? I mean,
consensus. I mean, it's maybe a 50 square feet at most.
Right. Yeah.
So
we got several of those little patches that are different.
Yeah.
So we got the front yard, we got the backyard, and then we've got the side yard, and then we've got the middle yard, if you will. Where that's kind of what we have.
I would think that looking at the property, this side yard will be very, very consistent to what you have over by the wash bay.
Got it. Okay.
So, you know, because then from an applicator standpoint, it gets a little tedious to go, okay, I'm going to go with a mix over here, you know, and it's mostly dry products.
Okay.
You know, then I got to go to something different in the backyard. Whereas if we kind of get it into sections, if we do have to go that route, it makes it easier on the applicator. So.
But what about time of year? Is there a bad time to do this, or you just do it when you need to do it?
No, you do it when you need to do it, because the majority of the work is going to be from adding soil amendments. So your calciums, your limes, sulfamags, and all that. We got a lot more to put in there. But,
oh, okay.
So we want to start getting those amendments down into the soil right away. And especially now, considering that, you know, you guys get pretty cold up here, you're getting ready to get into winter, you know, let's get it set up for the spring, so that when we come into spring and come back into season, we've got the best chance to set this thing up for success. So this is the boring part of the job right here.
Looks like you got little dog turds in there now.
Yeah.
You don't have any dogs, do you?
No.
Not yet.
Never.
No, I heard Michele wanted one, or she was gonna get you one.
She was joking. She's trying to figure out a way to get at me for
the Porsche.
Yeah, buying too many cars.
Yeah, that happens. I got 3 dogs at home. They're a handful.
I got 2 dogs. They're my children. Cats are great because they don't do anything to them.
They're moody. No interaction with them though. So yeah, we'll just go through
I think
here.
since we're gonna be stuck in the rain, we've gotten what we need, and we can wrap up under the thing.
Yeah.
So we can wrap it up under there.
Yeah. Keep that thing dry.
So this is what we're doing. So we're gonna go around the house, grab our samples, and we'll come back and wrap it up.
It's commodity items, so it's not specialty products or anything like that. You can run down to Spar there, or, you know, Site One or Ace Hardware. Everybody's gonna have lime or Sulpamag or whatever it calls for. You know, those are the things you use to balance the fertility versus, you know, we're gonna do your typical NPK fertilizers. They have a place, but they're not what's making the difference, and that's what the other guys are doing, is they're just coming out putting an NPK blend, and they're not looking at what's there.
So what about insects and all that crap? How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, that can become fairly simple too. I mean, there's a lot of great options. If you wanted to do it yourself, you just run to Home Depot, and we can look at, you know, what we can pull out of there. And
yeah, I really don't.
Yeah.
What about having because I have a boutique yard guy. He's probably the guy to do it, wouldn't he be?
Yeah, he would be the guy,
and he would learn a lot from doing it. If he didn't know, you know, he's going to think he knows it already.
Right.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
Is that every yard guy thinks they already know.
Right.
But in your experience, they probably don't.
Yeah, and they mean well. You know, they learn to the level that they can learn within their industry. Like you did with car detailing. I went down some crazy rabbit holes for 20 years to figure this stuff out. It's like, you know, we said on the phone the other day, we could pull a soil sample. Anybody can pull a soil sample. The art becomes, how do we balance everything?
Right.
You know, because you have to understand relationships between certain nutrients, how this one affects that one, and everything from there. That's years and years and years of, I live by myself. I live by myself. I'm not married. I got time to kill. I'm going to go down this rabbit hole and see what happens.
Yeah.
So most people aren't willing to put that kind of time in. It's my career. It's my passion. That's what I do. So the end result spits out, and it's like, boom, I'm here to fix your yard.
So what if people want to, you have to come out to their house? What if people want to hire you? So what if someone's watching this video?
Right.
How do they call you?
Well, probably go through you.
Yeah,
we'll figure that out.
Send me a message and I'll shoot you an email.
Yeah, and then what they could do is I could work remotely.
Yeah.
You know,
you can tell them what to do. Yeah.
So if you want to hire my services, you could contact Matt until we come up with a better way to contact me. Just starting to roll with this. I will sell you one of these soil probes. We'll get you some bags. And then what we'll do is I will send you a submission form to the lab that I use. And then when you submit those in, you let me know. We set up the contract, we do that. I interpret the results, and we can do those via FaceTime or over the phone, and then I make the recommendations for you for your yard.
So you'll have a recipe of what chemicals would be a recommendation that you could use your yard guy or your... I'm almost guessing you'd be better off using the guy who's maintaining the yard rather than the chemical applicator, because they're probably going to balk.
Yeah, they're married to their method.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
like we said, they're all very successful doing what they do. But yeah, if you have a guy that's more willing and open, or you know, if you're a DIY guy, a lot of guys that watch
Well,
your
that's
channel.
what most of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just too. I've got too many cars to wash to worry
Yeah.
about treating this monster.
Yeah, and this is a big piece of property. So you like, if you're a DIY guy, I mean, you'll have a recipe, you know, for the year if you want to do a year thing, or we can sample quarterly, whatever you want to do. And then we just lay it out and we keep getting the right nutrients down. And then eventually what happens is your yard becomes super maintenance friendly, super easy, and you're, you know, drinking beers by the pool and not worrying about your yard anymore. And if you want to go fine tune it, then you can. So that's basically the process and how it works.
How do we figure out water? How much water? Like if you were here, it'd be easy. But if you're not here, how
Yeah.
do I manage that? How do I know what to do?
The main thing you want to do is make sure that you're getting good consistent coverage where you have irrigation. Typically if you want to go to the next level, you just, you know, get yourself a moisture meter for the soil. I mean, you can get them for $15 all the way up to $2,500, depends on what you want to spend. And then you water and you figure out where your consistent average is, where the yard looks good, it's not sopping wet, you're not growing weeds, and you say that's my average number. And then what you do is, you know, over time you create a running table of, I'm just going to go stick it in the yard and then I'm going to know when to water. So that would be a fair way to do it if you want to take it to the next level. Some other good indications is, obviously, I mean, this is basic stuff. You want to look for dry spots, but you also want to go look, make sure that you're not wet anywhere too. That could indicate a broken pipe or a broken head.
We've had that many times.
Yeah. But if those are out of the picture, then really what you're looking at is, I might be overwatering this area. And opposite of what most people think, grass needs to breathe more than it needs to drink.
Yeah.
So, you know, error on the side of being a little drier than wetter.
Yeah.
So you can drown it, and then you kind of base that, and it goes by feel, and it just depends on how much you want to do.
Yeah. All right, so from here, you're going to send these off. You're going to then have a recipe. You're going to say, here's what you need to buy.
Yep.
I'm going to take that recipe to my yard guy and say, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to fire my guys, or fire the chemical company, because
Right.
what they're going to do is mess up what we're going to do.
Right.
And so then it's largely going to be dry. It's all going to be dry product.
Yep.
And so we'll have a recipe that we have to mix up a certain amount in a certain batch, and then we go and spread it.
Yep.
And how often do we do that? Once a month?
Yeah, it could be, depending on the amounts we need. Like, so certain nutrients we're going to have to build up over time. So you just can't put that much out. Like, so say lime, let's say this is acidic and you're going from a pH of 5.5 and we got to bring it up to 6.5.
We're not getting there overnight.
Right. So it's going to be, you know, in that particular scenario, it could be 10 pounds of lime per 1,000 square feet monthly, and then we keep monitoring, and then we go, okay, we're getting there, and then we stop.
Yeah.
So physically, because, you know, to move a full pH point could be 2,000 pounds of lime per 1,000 square feet.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that in one shot. It's
We
just,
kill everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
So just depends on each particular scenario. So some you might have to put out a couple times, some you might have to put out a lot. It just,
So it could take a year or so to develop a solid soil level.
yeah. But you will start seeing improvements right away, because everything's starting to become more in balance.
So would your recipe be, we're going to do quarterly samples for a couple of years, and then from there we can maybe switch to less
Yeah.
sampling if we find that we're maintaining
Yeah, if
proper levels.
we're staying consistent, everything's average, then we can go to semi-annually. So we'll do one in June, we'll do one in December.
Yeah.
You know, or it depends on where you live. You know, if you're down south, season starts a little earlier, you know, so we just can base it on the seasons, and we can go to a twice a year model.
Yeah.
So
Gosh, that car looks so good.
it does look good. You getting ready to sell it?
Nah, I'm going to sell it next year.
Okay.
You know, not anytime soon, but I'm going to sell it next year. After I'm done with it, I've gotten to use it for a little while. And what's up, Shelly? I didn't realize how bad the yard was. Bad.
It looks, I would say, 50% better than it did.
Oh yeah, we got
so-
all plugged and stuff.
Right.
We're coming, hold on.
All right, cool. So we'll probably do some follow-ups on this as we see. You've seen what the yard looks like. What we'll do, you know, it's overcast is perfect. So that way when we do the reveal, it'll be bright and sunny and beautiful and right after a fresh cut. Jeff's gonna dig into this, and we'll do follow-ups on this as we see results in the yard. Yeah. We're gonna go show Michele a little bit because she's really in charge of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll let you know. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.